Use the Force, a very popular line used by Obi-Wan Kenobi and many others in Star Wars, but we're here to talk about the 12 best uses of the Force in Star Wars. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. So welcome, everybody, to TRB. That's right, it's the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thanks for being with us on this Monday. It is June. Summer is pretty much here. We got Indiana Jones coming out later this month. And that means we're only 2 months away from Ahsoka. So a lot of cool stuff. We're heating up, quite literally, and of course, in the Star Wars galaxy. With me, as always, is James and Lacey. What's going on? How we doing?
Doing pretty good, man. Lots of stuff going on. I'm still rooting for FC Cincinnati. They are killing it. I just found out today that besides old scores in MLS history, they have the top scoring at this point in the season, like ever for any team. Besides, like how they used to do it differently back in the day. So
I still think Richmond can take them, but that's just my opinion.
Well, hey, they played at the Yankee Stadium the other day. Did you see that?
They did?
Yeah, I'll send you a picture. It's pretty.
I don't
cool
like
the way
that they do
laid
soccer.
it out.
I don't like that they play soccer on the baseball field because then I feel like it screws up the field.
I didn't like it either because it had these weird like circles throughout the field.
You mean how it's supposed to be because it's Yankee Stadium?
The fair, totally.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
All right, Lacey, what about you? What's going on?
Sports. Nothing. I don't watch sports, so I don't have anything to add in the sports conversation. However, I did recently pick up 4 copies of like old school storybook Star Wars. Like they took the movie and made it into a storybook form, like back in the 80s, and they have vinyl records that go with them. So I'm pretty psyched to try those out.
Very
and it has like George Williams music and everything and sound effects and like lines from the movie.
George.
Sorry, John Williams.
It's like the Wish version of John Williams.
John Lucas is a genius.
John Williams music and then sound effects and like moments from the movie mixed in with the storybook itself.
That's awesome. That is
pretty
cool.
psyched.
Yeah.
I got it for a really good price too because I haggle. I'm a good haggler.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I want to get you like it will be this much. And I'm like, nah. I don't pay full price.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So if anybody ever wants to haggle,
I like that.
You know who did pay the price? This guy.
Ugh.
On my shirt, Kylo Ren, Ben Solo paid the full
Thanks,
price.
Chris Terrio.
I love how everyone blames Chris Terrio. Like JJ's like, yeah, that he wrote that part.
Because Chris Terrio in the behind the scenes documentary is the one that's saying how hopeful it is and how great of a moment it is, and JJ's not.
I think it's pretty hopeful. He gave Rey hope to live on.
John's just hopeful that people will stop talking about Ben Solo because he's dead, but they won't because he's dead. So
it's
the
not
joke's
that.
on him.
It's not that. I'm just saying he's dead, and that's all I've ever said. People twist my words because I'm on like block lists and stuff like that, but he's dead.
John's on a block list. What is the block list? Dude that talks about how Ben Solo's he's glad Ben Solo
Yeah, they're like,
died.
this
You'd be surprised. I bet that exists.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, I've been through the gamut. You know what I'm talking about.
Then I must be on block lists that are like, she won't stop talking about this.
That's probably true too.
He's being too truthful about what the world between worlds is. Block immediately. Yeah. Gone. You know what we're not blocking though?
Actually, hold on 1 second. You know how people make that joke? People make that joke online that they're like, what would you tweet out if I was kidnapped? Or like, what would I tweet out if I was kidnapped to know that there was trouble? I know John's tweet would be like, Ben Solo shouldn't have died. Like, that's what I would be like, guys, there's something wrong. Someone has to do something.
No, I would just tweet out like 50 blue butterflies and then like, hashtag Raylo forever.
That would be the tweet that I'd see, and I'd be like, I'd call James and I'd be like, he's been kidnapped. We need to become Liam Neeson. We need to
become Liam Neeson. Yeah. All right.
So the spirit of Ben Solo just turned my ring light off, so we're just gonna readjust that.
I saw that.
All right. So here's the deal, folks. We have a segment called Will of the Force, and James is going to tell you all about it and how you can get involved too.
I fear nothing, for all this as the Force wills it.
That is right. And as John was alluding to, if you want to be part of Will the Force, all you have to do is go over to patreon.com/resistance podcast. Now, that particular page is our Patreon page, and you can, sign up for any tier that you want monetarily and help us out, which helps us in so many ways. Actually, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the one cool thing is that the $5 tier, which is the lowest tier, introduces being able to submit topics to Will the Force and other things, but Will the Force specifically this week is you can submit the questions, ask us a couple things, and we'll take them and do them on the show, which is really cool. And it's a great way to be part of the show. That's why we're going to kick it off this week with one of our patron submissions. This one coming from Admiral Kyle Baker.
Yo.
And Kyle asked us the question, with the rumored prevalence of pirates in the show, will Hondo Ohnaka appear in Skeleton Crew? Lacey, do you want to answer this first? What do you think?
I feel like I'm going to break a lot of hearts right now in Star Wars because I know a lot of our listeners love Hondo, so you know where this is going to go. I don't think he will show up. I feel like it's a good place to put him. Like if you're thinking like, oh, when will he show up? Because I feel like Hondo has come up a bunch of times, especially with The Mandalorian. Like, could he show up? What does this mean? Where could we see him again? We miss him, that kind of stuff. And, he's at Galaxy's Edge. He's in the ride. So obviously he's important to Lucasfilm and fans in general. I don't see Skeleton Crew becoming this like Easter egg cameo show, especially because John Watts is the one that's kind of heading it up. And I feel like he's a little outside of probably the Dave Filoni bubble, I like to call it, like the reaches of Dave Filoni. Now, I'm not saying Dave Filoni didn't have any say in that show, because he definitely does, because it's like a branch off of what they call like the Mandoverse, is seemingly like related, like a brother-sister show, so to speak. I just don't think that he's going to show up. If he does, it's going to be awesome, and people are going to lose their minds just like they did with like Zeb and all these other people. I just don't think he will. And I'm so sorry.
All right. Well, let me bounce back at you then and say that I think you will. I think that for the reasons that you were saying, that it seems like a perfect framing for him coming into the show. I hadn't considered it, but Kyle kind of convinced me. He said, do you think this makes sense? And I go, oh, shoot, that actually does make a lot of sense. Because the last time we saw Hondo, well, I don't want to say that exactly, but the biggest relevant time, I think, is when he was sort of convinced to be a mentor for Ezra. He says, for that kid, I'd do anything. And I think from that point on, he has become someone who would be willing to help out children in a situation where they find themselves maybe involved with pirates and things that he knows a lot about. And it seems very kid friendly, and the kids could then go to the park and see the character. I don't know. It sort of just makes sense.
And then move on to Rebels and stuff.
Yeah. And he's sort of a character that would be involved. This also does make me think, though, this would have been a better show for Jack Black to show up in.
Right? Yes.
To be honest,
100%.
with like Goosebumps, School of Rock, Jumanji, he seems like someone who would like please the adults and the kids. And if this is where you're aiming, like Amblin, it probably would have been a better fit for a cameo. But John, what do you think?
I don't think Hondo Ohnaka will show up in Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
I think if he does, the best chance would be in the Ahsoka series. Just because of the connection with Ezra. And I know all this stuff is connected, but I just don't know. I like the idea because the adversaries are pirates and he's a pirate, and technically, I guess we can say the last time we've seen Hondo in canon is at Galaxy's Edge, in between episodes 9.
Yeah, yes. So he's alive.
He's been very busy.
Yeah.
Very busy telling crowd after crowd how
this
to
doesn't
run
fit into that timeline, but yeah.
Yeah, this is before that timeline. Yeah. So I think best shot would be Ahsoka. I don't think he's going to show up in either, though. So I'm going to say no.
Fair. All right. Well, let me move on to the next question then, because we get another one. Will the writers' strike, because that's very relevant right now, obviously, possible other industry strikes as well, delay this next Star Wars movie from arriving in December of 2025? So not only this, but any possible things that could come up in the future. John, do you think there's a chance that the December 2025 Star Wars movie will get pushed?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's gonna hit the date. Because everything I've been trying to keep up as much as I can, uh, and with the writer's strike, and it just seems like at the starting point there was just zero counteroffer from the studio, so
There still is.
they're at a zero progress
And
situation, and it seems like all productions, even ones that didn't want to be, were pressured, justfully so, into halting those productions, and that includes whatever they were doing with developing the rest of this script or the start over of this script for this new Ray movie by the Peaky Blinders creator, off of Damon Lindelof. So that alone, even if there was no strike, it would have been like, all right, well, he's got to finish that up and make sure they get into production at some point, so it's not as rushed as some of the other movies that they had done. Um, Add the strike to it, I think they're going to be in a situation where they're going to be like, we could probably get this done, but time's going to be ticking pretty quick. And all of a sudden, before we know it, it's going to be 2024. And they're going to be back in that situation where they were with the sequel trilogy movies, where they're like, we can probably get this done, or Solo or whatever, or Rogue One. We can get this done in time, but we're going to be rushing till the very end. And we've seen how that goes sometimes. Now, I loved all the movies. So a lot of people didn't, but a lot of their arguments is they felt like stuff was rushed or done last minute and decisions were made. I would like for them to have as much time as they need. And that's sort of like what Kathleen Kennedy had been saying with this new narrative. We're going to wait till things are ready and good to put them out. So she may, I know, like there were stories about, you better hit that date because we gave you mulligan with the Rogue Squadron 2020
Right.
thing, which obviously came and went. Not came and went, but it's just not happening in this year. I think this might give them a bit of an out. Like, there was a strike, we had to halt everything, so we'll see in 2026. So I think it'll get pushed a full year. I think we'll see that next Star Wars movie in 2026 now, if the strike doesn't miraculously end like this summer.
All right, Lacey, 2025, 2026 or later, what do you think?
Yeah, so I guess the first question is Stephen Knight a part of the Writers Guild of America? That's what I was trying to look up while you were talking, John, and it didn't really come up immediately. So I don't know if he is. I don't want to assume that he isn't or is. I would lean towards he is, because most people are, if they're writers. But that would obviously impact this. Now, even if he's not a part of the Guild of America, he still might support them, so he might not be writing. The issue is that as of Celebration, which is April, they said that he was currently writing the script and should have it within the next month or so. Now, within that month or so, the strike took place on May 2nd. So I would say if he's a part of the Guild, then yes, he probably stopped writing. Therefore, it would delay the movie. And I think even that said, if he's not, I think this writer strike will affect the Star Wars movie, because you're already seeing it affect other projects that are way further along, like Andor and The Mandalorian, where the stories are basically done and they're about to go into filming, which they might have edits and stuff. As we know, throughout the process, they make changes, whether it be writing changes, filming changes, whatever. Those things are already being impacted. This story has not even left the ground, so to speak. Like, it's still being created in the writing phase. So I couldn't see this movie not being delayed. Now, hopefully, they have enough time, like John was saying. We're in 2023. They have, 1.5 years. Maybe they'll push it to like early 2026. I don't know. But they could potentially still make it. My kind of worry with it is that they push it through anyway, or they rush it, and then we don't get the movie that we want, and or not necessarily want, but a good movie. It's been so long since we've had a movie from 2019 to now. I would hate for that movie to be rushed through and then put out this product that none of us are like, this is what we've been waiting for. So I'm a strong believer, I've said this for the last several weeks, that writers, people in film and TV, creators, like within, not just our space, but all space, should be paid what they deserve, especially like visual effects people. But in this case, writers, they're not asking for a lot, They're asking to be recognized for their work in a way that the industry has changed. Therefore, their pay structure also has to change. So I think until those needs are met, which is clearly not anytime soon, it's going to impact stuff like this. And I hope that the impact is only a delay and not an impact on the quality.
And for anyone asking, like, Stephen Knight is obviously British, but non-Americans can still be a part of the WGA as well.
Right.
So
I just did a quick search and I didn't see it, so I didn't want to say yes or no. But even then, he still might be supporting it.
There seems to be that solidarity, whether that's voluntarily or just feeling pressured to do so. Like Tony Gilroy, I think it was pretty clear he wanted to keep going, and then there was a lot of like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And he's like, all right, we'll stop."
To be fair, though, he did say, "Oh, I'm done writing," and they're like, "That's not how this process works. We all know how this process. You're going to keep writing."
Yeah.
So but yeah.
My thing, just very quickly, is actually. Sure, what you guys are saying exactly. That's very possible. I will take the other route and say, and possible other industry strikes. I think we're probably on the verge of a visual effects industry strike
and
as
actor.
Well. I don't know about actors, but I do know that I've been following like visual effects, like with Marvel and all the stuff that's been going on and how hard they're pushing them. And that has the same implication of part of the reason that the writer strike is happening is because of this potential new movement into AI. And that's taking over a lot of artistic things too. So I don't really think in the next 2 years, you're going to be able to be like, boop, 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 Optimus Prime, there he is. But I think that somewhere along the lines, that stuff is going to have, there's going to be an argument that takes place there. And I think we're getting close to the verge of it anyway because of pay and pressing hours and how much needs to be done by small groups of people and how they separate everything out. So
I'm
going to say
the AI argument is crazy in itself because AI is just taking in other people's work and then basically replicating it. So that's its own thing. So I understand why people are fighting against it.
And it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's move on to another Patreon submission. This one coming from one of our patrons that is a general, Danny, or Chibigon89, as she's known to us affectionately. Will Kiera Knightley reprise her role as Sabé in any of the live action Star Wars shows? Lacey, what do you think on this one about Kiera Knightley possibly popping back into Star Wars?
Hi, Danny. Thanks for your question. I love this question. I am going to apologize because I'm going to give you a quick answer. And my answer is no. I don't think Kiera Knightley has any interest in doing Star Wars. Maybe for a big paycheck, but I don't think they want to tell this story right now. So I'm going to say no.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, with all the Padme books and I know the quote from Natalie Portman, which to me didn't mean anything. I think she's just being nice, saying like, "Oh, they never asked me, but I'd come back." I don't see what the story or value would be to have Sabé come back. That would make sense in anything right now. If there was a story where it fit and it made sense, I believe she may have been the one that Vader thought was Padme in that comic.
Right. Yep. And she goes on like a longer adventure with him, and they're working together for a while and stuff.
Yeah, I just don't see it though, so I'm with Lacey. I hope that doesn't bum you out, Danny, if you were leaning towards yes, but I'm gonna say no too.
I think that the fact that the comic exists is something that's happening right now where they're saying, okay, well, they could potentially explore other people, that look like this or whatever. And one of the things here is that you had Kiera Knightley before she was really a successful actress. And now that she has become one, would you be willing, could we get her back into Star Wars? Because there's a connection there. We get the same actress.
Like Joel Edgerton and coming back.
Yeah. And I think Lacey said it, like, I don't know what the story would be or why they would tell it in that particular time frame. I don't know what she would be doing. And I don't think that they would be willing to pay Kiera Knightley fees just to tell a story of Sabé, a character that probably most people don't even really know other than the Easter egg of it was played by Kiera Knightley and she's in the background or whatever. Yeah. So I unfortunately I'm going to go no on that one as well. So all three of us are kind of down on that idea, but I don't know. It'd be cool if it happened. Last question here for Will the Force before we move on to our next section is going to be, will we see Force lightning used in the Acolyte? John, I think you say yes. Am I right? What do you think?
I do. Yeah.
Ooh, yes.
I don't think we've seen enough Force lightning in Star Wars. We got a little bit from Snoke, like a zap, 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 zap,
Mhm.
zap, like that. And then
Dooku.
Palpatine used it a little too much. And then Dooku, he's like, I'm going to give you the one hand lightning job. And then we've seen Rey do it in a quick burst that she didn't realize.
Right.
But I think because this is a dark side show, I think we're going to see it again. I don't know how, maybe not even from a person, but I think we're going to see some Force lightning for sure used in the Acolyte. So I'm looking forward to it. And if I'm wrong, whatever, but I think we will.
All right. Well, Lacey, do you think we're going to see some Force lightning?
I think we will see Force lightning. It's
Ooh.
one of those kind of staples for the dark side that when you go on to a certain point, you're able to unlock these abilities. I also think a little further than that, I think this show is going to introduce us to some new Force powers that we haven't seen before.
Yeah,
Because we
I agree
haven't
with
really
that.
explored the dark side of things. We get a little glimpse of it between Kylo and Rey with their kind of Force bond stuff, but we haven't really seen newer abilities on the dark side. So I think we're going to get some new stuff too.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with both that we could see some newer Force powers on the dark side. And I also agree that we're going to see some Force lightning because that seems to be the go-to signature move. The one thing might be that it was to be like a possibly Sith related thing, but again, Rey did it, and that doesn't connect to the Sith necessarily.
Right.
Snoke.
And Snoke, yeah. So I mean, So I think the Force thing or the lightning thing is probably very likely. Right off the top of my head, Lacey, when you said we haven't seen very many, with Jedi Fallen Order and all
Live
that,
action.
we have
Live
no,
action.
totally. With that stuff, you get the Night Sisters who are using the dark side, and obviously the Clone Wars and stuff. They're using the dark side in different ways that aren't necessarily like the Sith or whatever. They call it just magic, and it's not like the dark side specifically. So that could be interesting too if you're exploring more outside of like that strict, like, oh, this is the light side, this is the Jedi way, this is the dark side, this is the Sith way. We could see some stuff that's like, oh, this is borderline Force using. I don't, it's
Right.
it maybe good, maybe bad, kind of like a karma based thing or something. I don't know. There's a lot that they could do with it, and Acolyte would probably be one of the best places to explore all sides. So I agree. But that is going to be it for Will the Force. Lacey, do you want to go ahead and take us into our next section?
All right, guys, it's time for the Patreon pod race. All right, guys, there are lots of ways you can support us. We talked about it a little bit at the top of the show. You can like this video, comment, subscribe on YouTube. We're getting over 2,000 subscribers now, which is awesome. We're making our way to that 100,000 for John to wear the gold bikini at Star Wars Celebration 2025.
Let's go.
Yes. You can also follow us on social and all the different channels at TRB Podcasts. We're on everything from Twitter to Instagram to TikTok to Facebook. But if you want to do more than that and you want to support what we're doing here and our plans for the future, including some upcoming awesome trips we can't wait to share with you and much, much more, you can head over to patreon.com/resistance broadcast. With your support, starting at $5 a month, you get to be a part of the community, talk with other fans, and get exclusive content and live streams and much, much more. So this is the part of the show that we let people take part, and it's our generals and spice runners, our top two tiers. We ask them a question, they give us their answer, and we discuss it. So before I get to that, I do want to thank those people. So thank you to Carmelo, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Mori, Matt Heath, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Sneaky Zebra, Aaron Ellington, Micah Harrison, Colin Corimer, Haas Aslam, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, and Diana. Thank you guys so much. And to our Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gelnar, Dave Hornack, Thomas Hennessy, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Michael Fry, and the newest Spice Runner. Welcome, Forth Worthington, or Worthian, like a Mandalorian.
Yeah,
very
You've
cool.
now been accepted into the club. I've messed up your name, so welcome.
2 clubs
from Texas, I assume.
Yes.
Forth Worthian.
I've been there once. When I worked for WWE, I went there. Fort Worth.
Fort Worth? This is Fort Worth, right?
Fort Worth. Yes.
Yeah.
So I messed your name up twice. So now you're in a special club where I messed it up twice.
And then the third time you get a golden ticket and you get to go to the chocolate.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there's a jacket. It's great.
So this week we have our buddy Sneaky Zebra, one of our generals. Thank you so much for doing the Sneaky Zebra. It's always great to have you on the show. And his question was, what is your favorite action sequence from the sequel trilogy and why? Take it away.
There are so many amazing scenes in the sequel trilogy, but conveniently we are on the set of one of the sets of my fan film, which takes place during the sequel trilogy. So I have watched these films and their action scenes quite a lot over the past few years. I immediately wrote off lightsaber fights because I feel like what's the best lightsaber duel is a question we all constantly ask and debate as fans. So I wanted to distill it down to just action. And really, my pick, I realized it's not a huge sequence, but it's one that I think is just amazingly well done. And it's from The Rise of Skywalker, and it's just so brilliantly done. And that is whenever Finn, Poe, and Chewie are running through the hallways of the Star Destroyer. And the reason I love it so much is they have that great one-er where they're running down the corridors and the camera just doesn't cut. They have great transition points in there of movement and choreography, great pyrotechnics in there, stunt people in stormtrooper suits getting knocked down. And I think I love it because the action is so in camera. And yes, there's, visual effects added to it and a bit of cleanup here or there and a few hidden edits every now and again in sequences like that. But I think for the fundamentals of it, I think it's just a really great raw action scene in the film. And every time I watch that sequence, the kid in me just remembers running around the living room with a toy blaster, imagining running around the Death Star or something. And I think it just really encapsulates a little bubble of just Star Wars awesomeness of guys running around with blasters, taking out stormtroopers, fighting the bad guys. But thank you so much for letting me be on the pod race again. I'm very sad I missed everyone at Celebration, but sadly due to some top secret AI work, I couldn't make it back home to London for it. But also thank you for letting me get one maybe last use out of this set before it gets totaled. But thank you guys again and keep up the amazing work.
Awesome job, Sneaky Zebra. Love that set. You're gonna get rid of it, really? Does anybody want it? Anyone want to pack it up and bring it to their house? So, guys, what did you think of his answer, John?
When is TRB gonna get into one of the Sneaky Zebra movies? That's what I want to know. That's
quite an achievement to unlock.
Yeah, we got to unlock that one. But no, great answer. I love the sets. I love those very YT 1300 looking sets that you always have behind you. Very cool stuff, and they look so legit. So first of all, thanks for supporting us as always, man. And great job on the video. I wouldn't even have thought of that answer, and I want to go back and watch the movie again now because I like Rise of Skywalker too. And just seeing that scene, I remember seeing it in that big trailer with the sweeping music that I cried during. And I was like, wow, that scene looks like it's going to be really cool, old school Star Wars. And it really was. It did feel a little bit like Death Star corridors, but I got to go back. You were saying that they didn't make any cuts. So it was almost like this one long shot. I got to take that in again. So thank you for pointing that out. But you're right. When you combine all that stuff, it's not the high flying space battle stuff that usually steals the attention when it comes to visual effects and action sequences. But that's a really sneaky zebra pick, sleeper pick. So I think you did a great job with that one. So stellar work, stellar video. Thanks for all your support, buddy. And we'll talk soon. And sorry we missed the celebration, but hopefully in the future.
Yeah, I 100% agree with exactly everything that John said, which is like, I'm normally someone that picks up on the long take shot, and for some reason I was thinking about this and I'm like, yeah, it was because they were moving through the corridors. I kind of remember this. Is it all one shot? I should go back and revisit that. But also just in general, it was a scene that like, I think we sort of wrote in our heads that we'd like to see after we saw Force Awakens and Last Jedi. And it just, it's like Finn, Poe, and Chewbacca like running through, blasting people through corridors and stuff. it's like that movie has so much stuff in it that is really cool that we just don't really take in because we just kind of base it on the whole thing, you know. But it's like, man, there's so many good parts in Star Wars that sometimes get overlooked because we don't like Attack of the Clones or something, you know. But it's like so much stuff is so good, and I really appreciate this answer because it sometimes avoids the main one and goes for something that is a little underrated sometimes. So yeah, great pick. Thank you, Sneaky Zebra, for bringing it to light for us, and thanks for doing the pod race.
Yeah, this pick, I don't know what's going on with me. This pick, I was like, this pick.
Right?
It's been a day, guys. This is a great pick, Sneaky Zebra. And you guys know me from The Mandalorian and much more that I love a good long shot where everything's done in one take. Like, one takes are insane. And like you brought up, like the amount of talent on so many different levels, from like the actors to the choreography to special effects. Like, they have to be like, okay, and go and do this and throw this person here and do this. It's just insane. I can't even imagine how many takes they took to do that, in the sense of
not one,
multiple one takes.
No, I got you.
Anyway, thank you so much. You're awesome. I am very sad that you're going to be breaking down that set, but I hope you got tons of pictures and videos and stuff in it. And I hope that if you're an audio listener, you will check out the video just so you can see Sneaky Zebra's pod race, because it's definitely worth it. But now we're going to head to John for our Kessel Run.
All right, everybody, strap in and get ready, because it's time for the Kessel Run.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon? It's a ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs.
All right, not if you're round down, buddy. Not if you're round down. All right, so this is our segment where we put together our collective list of 12 things about a specific topic in Star Wars. Of course, Star Wars. And this time, it's the 12 best uses of the Force. So we're each going to go around, give our picks, total up to 12, and then we'll summarize it at the very end. And of course, want to hear from you what you think of our picks and what your picks are as well, because it's tough to make these choices when there's so many different selections to choose from. So no wrong answers, though. So we're going to kick things off this time with Lacey. Lacey, what is your first pick for the best use of the Force?
I love how you didn't even give us the choice. We usually go, okay, who wants to go first? But this time John was like, nope, Lacey's going first. It's happening.
Full disclosure, I tried to go back to previous ones and see what the rotation was.
Because usually it's like, who's going to do this? And I immediately go, nope. And then someone else goes. But it's just funny that John was like, so Lacey's going to start this time. That's totally fine. All right. So I'm going to kick it off with a moment from a movie that we're celebrating this year. It's 40th anniversary, which is Return of the Jedi. As you guys know, I love the Jabba Palace sequence, one of the best sequences in Star Wars. So I couldn't leave this moment out. And it's the moment that Luke Skywalker uses a Jedi mind trick on Bib Fortuna when he's telling him, like, no, you'll bring me to Jabba now. And he's like, oh, I'll bring you Jabba now.
Jabba now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just... this sequence, what can I say that I haven't already said about it? The idea that Luke Skywalker shows up and he's in this like cloak and he's like such an awesome Jedi Knight now, and he's got all his tricks down, pun intended, including mind tricks, and he's able to just command the room and walk in and be like, no, you're gonna go do this thing now. And the guy's like, yeah, I'll go do that thing. It's just such a full circle moment from the first time that we meet him with Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope, where he's like, what did you just do? And here he is doing it. It's just so awesome. And it's like a first glimpse of like what Luke is capable of, which we knew he was growing as this trilogy went on, in his power and his confidence, in his ability to be a Jedi. And this just kicks off the movie, and I feel like his character in a whole new chapter of just recognizing who he is, what he's capable of, and what he can do for good, which is to save his friends and support his friends.
Yeah, but also like you're right about the power thing, because following directly after him walking in and being like choke, choke, 2 Gamorrean guards.
Yeah, sorry, I left that part out. He did choke some people out right before this.
I mean, yeah, but
which
it
I
is one
thought
of those things.
was
Like
awesome.
it shows like whoa, like, and then he just
Yes.
convinces the guy no problem, and that takes us back to A New Hope. It's so good. Yeah.
So I am not gonna lie, some of my list is like really big moments like choking, and then there's some moments that are more of like the subtle cool moments, and I felt like the choking thing was so awesome. It's so cool for him to do that. But I feel like him mastering the trick from Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope, for me, kind of peaked a little bit higher than him just like taking people out. But there's so many Luke moments that are on this list, so I'm just kicking it off.
There we go.
Yeah, and also there's the ominous nature of that. Like, if you didn't watch, everyone probably did watch the trailers for Return of the Jedi. You see Luke walking in. You can't see his face. He's in a black cloak and he's choking people out.
People thought he was bad. People thought he was a bad guy.
You're like, what happened to this guy?
Yeah,
and
yeah. And the same way
the lightsaber and the sides come
when I was
out,
a kid,
red.
The same way they treated him with Kylo Ren and TFA, everyone was like, Luke went dark, and everyone was like, there's so many other options here.
Right, and there's when I was a kid and first watching Return of the Jedi, I thought he was just intimidated by Luke, and then I realized Jabba calls him a weak-minded fool, and Luke tries to do one on Jabba and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, that was a freaking Jedi mind trick. Wow. That was a good pick. All right, James, you're up.
All right. I couldn't choose between 2, so I'm going to ask you guys, do you want me to do 4 serious ones, or should I do a kind of funny, fun one?
Also, to keep it going, guys, we've done how many of these now? James has still decided not to share his moments in advance.
No, yeah.
So
what do you think?
This is part of the process now.
So 4 solid ones, like a funny one.
I'm going to say use the Force. What is the Force?
Okay, I think given those options, we got enough serious ones. I'll go with the funny one, all right? Let's kick it off with a good one, and that is Yoda walking into the room and immediately just knocking those royal guards to the side.
Oh, in Revenge of the Sith.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that you could be hating that movie and in misery, but when that moment happens, everybody laughs. And I think maybe that's just my opinion or my experience. I think that is a moment when people walk in and they go, I cannot believe he just completely annihilated those. And after seeing, all the other things with Praetorian Guards and Mandalorian and everything, like, I think just every time they do stuff like that, it just elevates other Star Wars properties. And this is another moment that we get of seeing how powerful Yoda is in at that time, getting ready to go up at the Emperor. He walks in, and these 2 dudes who are supposed to protect the leader of the Senate, it's like they don't even do anything. They're nothing. They mean nothing. And he just slams them to the wall, and that's it. And then the fight can begin. It's just such a good, solid precursor to what you are about to witness, that I feel like I had to put it on this list.
It's like being a security guard at a store in like Greenwich or somewhere. You're like, nobody's robbing this store. I just sit here and chill out, and then they just get knocked out. And this precedes Yoda shoving the most evil person in the galaxy over some Staples office furniture.
That tumble over the chair is one of the most ridiculous things in Star Wars. If we did like a countdown of ridiculous moments,
I'm really torn on if that being is cool or bad. I don't know.
It's so bad because it just looks like an old man like reclined too far and fell back in his chair.
Yeah.
It looks
ridiculous. His like feet stick up. You have to expect him to have like some weird like socks on or something.
Bloomers. Pink underwear. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna save mine that I consider a bit humorous and go with one that Lacey actually tied into hers, which is Obi-Wan showing us for the first time the manipulation of the weak minds in A New Hope when he tricks the stormtroopers by saying, you do not need to see his identification. These aren't the droids you're looking for. He can go about his business, move along. And then the stormtroopers just let them go. And Luke's like, how did you do that? And the whole audience is like, how did he do that? And Obi-Wan just goes, the Force has a strong effect against the weak-minded. It's like, oh, wow. Am I weak-minded? Am I strong?
I was going to say, do you think you'd get tricked? I don't think I would.
I don't know. I don't know. I think I like to assume the best in people sometimes. So I'd be like, oh, this nice little old man, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, what just happened? So I don't know.
I like to think I have a stronger mind than Jabba, therefore.
Jabba didn't get tricked, though. No, Jabba didn't get tricked.
He didn't. So I'm saying I like
Yeah.
to think I'm stronger than Jabba, therefore I
Oh.
wouldn't get tricked.
So if he can't, yeah, okay. Good.
Yeah.
Correct.
For me, I think I would probably get tricked, but I also like to think that given like at some point during the day, maybe I wouldn't, and another point during the day, maybe I would. It just kind of depends on people's moods and where they're at in their life, you know, that they might just be like letting things kind of ride by them.
Yeah.
So it might just sort of depend on the person and where they're at, not necessarily this person all the time.
Yeah.
I do have to say that this moment, though, is probably the most well-known Force-using moment in Star Wars. Like, everybody knows this moment. Everybody knows the Jedi mind trick thing. Yes, move along is like such a big joke, kind of pop culture reference, I feel. Like, it's become such a general thing.
And people use like their hands to like open doors and stuff
Yeah,
too.
Jedi
That, like
mind
isn't
trick,
even but it isn't even like an actual thing in Star Wars. Like people just kind of do that.
Obi-Wan does
This
it. He shuts a door.
He does, but that's like that's not the reason people do that when they walk up to like an automatic door or something. I think it's just I think you're right though. This might be an actual thing that happens in Star Wars that people are replicating.
Because people in so many references go, you don't need blank, or like you don't need to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ray does it in Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
Yeah.
She does the hand wave, and those two stormtroopers are like, this is good. This is but yeah, Obi-Wan, it's a classic, and it's also like the first introduction of a certain level of the Force. So we're being introduced to the Force for the first time. It's like, oh, that's something they can do. Whoa, okay. So it's like sets the table, sets the bar in the first movie. So all right, Lacey, you are up with our fourth pick.
Yeah, so I'm going to pick a moment that I think stood out to me in the sequel trilogy, which, guys, you know there's a couple sequel moments on my list. That stood out to me as not only something that showed how powerful this character was, but also was a moment that I will always remember when I saw this movie, which was The Last Jedi, 8 times in the movie theaters. I'm not kidding you. 8 times. Every single time people cheered at this moment. Like, this was a moment that everybody collectively celebrated and or loved. Same with like Vader in Rogue One. And that was Kylo Ren / Ben Solo killing Snoke in The Last Jedi in the throne room by like turning the ignition on with his fingers and then bringing the lightsaber to him. Then Rey catches it. It was such an epic moment that shows his ability to not only move things, which is like a basic Jedi trick, but he does it in such a way that Snoke doesn't pick up on it. Rey doesn't pick up on it. Like, she looks genuinely scared, like he's about to kill her. And he subtly just moves this thing around and it's such a Han Solo moment for him as well, because he's so quick on his feet to think, how am I going to get out of this? And even Rian Johnson said that, like, he walked into that room thinking, how am I going to get out of this? And he saw the moment of the lightsaber spinning on the table as, this is it. I'm going to take this time to do this. And it's just such a cool moment and a cool shot, and it builds up their relationship and his kind of ability to turn, right? That's the first kind of hint that you're like, oh my God, he could actually be redeemed. Oh my God, he's not as bad as we think he is, which obviously it goes a different way the rest of the movie. But I just think that it's just such a cool moment. Like, it's so sneaky. It's so Jedi-like to like subtly turn a lightsaber and turn it on. And I love how Rian Johnson and who's his director of photography? I'm blanking right now. Is it Steve Yedlin, right? He's so wonderfully he's the director of photography that he uses all the time.
Schmo down. What are we talking here? No,
I'm just trying to give credit to where credit's due. And the credit is the shot of just his hand. He's able to show just his hand and moving his fingers. And us as Star Wars fans, because we've been trained with the Obi-Wan moment, which is what ties this to that, we know he's using the Force. We know that this subtle movement of his hand is doing this way bigger thing because we've been trained that that's what Jedi do, that's what you're able to do with the Force.
Look, it's not Luke, I'm your father. You know, I know, and I know it's no, I'm your father. It's not that. But this is a plot twist. It's a huge plot twist in the movie. Everything changes after this point. It shocked
people. It shocked me.
And it's such a good the way that it all happened, considering everything that you were saying, as far as like he was able to not only convince the audience, but he was able to not he was able to convince Snoke and Rey and everybody else in the room that nothing was going on. So all of it
So Han
plays
Solo
out
of him.
exactly so perfectly. It's a wonderfully amazing
And
force
just
ability.
and real quick, just having been in the room at the world premiere, seeing this, and just
Did people lose
hearing
their hair too?
they gasped and cheered. I mean, I may have heard Jon Favreau cheering. Who knows? I was in
Because
a very
people
tight
want
seat.
good. Okay, people want people to be good, right? Ultimately, as
Yeah.
human beings, we want to believe that people are good. So the moment that the bad guy goes, I'm going to do the right thing here, which is what people see time and time again in Star Wars, through this Jedi mind trick move, is epic. Is so epic.
Mhm.
I was just trying to rub it in that I was at the TLJ premiere.
I
And
know.
Lacey
I was
didn't
going.
take the
I
bait.
was glossing over it, and then you brought it up again.
I
Moving
only
on.
do it because usually Lacey
Move
takes the bait
along.
on it. But yeah,
Move along.
yeah, let's move along.
Well, let me
pick 5.
let me jump off of your pick with Kylo Ren there. And
Keep going,
say
please. We can make this list, Kylo Ren, if you want.
that moment in The Force Awakens when Poe fires that blaster and he just stops.
Oh, this is such a good moment, James. Yes, this is such a good moment.
Freezes the bolt, and everybody goes, "Oh, whoa, what just happened?"
Yes.
But to see Poe walk past it changed Star Wars forever, in my opinion. It's a moment where it's probably the moment in The Force Awakens that said, you thought you were going to see some cool new stuff, but you didn't even put together it was going to be stuff like this. Like, I think
Right.
that's the moment when everybody in the audience has their, the Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder, where he like trips and he says, now you can't trust me anymore. I think it's that moment for the movie. He stops the bolt and we walk past it and we go, we've never seen anything like this. We never could have imagined it. So I'm on for the ride, J.J. Abrams, whatever you want to give me.
And we've seen Vader block them, obviously, in Empire Strikes Back and stuff like that in the dinner scene. But the fact that not only he holds it there, James, he leaves it there for the whole conversation and all of the other. And then at the end, it just shoots off when he lets it go. Like, he's having this whole conversation with Poe, and he's doing all these things and taking down Lor San Tekka, and the blaster bolt's still sitting there.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yep.
Yeah, and
he's awesome.
That you're right. That moment where the camera's on one side, the bolt's in the middle, and Poe's on the other side, and we're traveling with Poe past it,
and you see his eye line,
and you hear it going like like it wants to continue on its inertia, or whatever you call it. Yeah, it's a very cool shot and a very unique thing to do, and a smart choice, like you say, for introducing a new black masked villain in Star Wars. Like, we got to do something new here, and they did it, so it was very cool.
So yeah, the craziest thing for me, I think, with TFA, especially with Kylo, is this moment. To me, when I first saw it in the movie theater, I was like, oh, this guy's stronger than Vader, right? Like, we had never seen Vader do something like this. So I think it kind of set the tone, at least in TFA, that this guy was bad. Like, worse than we've ever seen. Yeah.
Which takes us to pick 6, which I'm going with one that I find actually a little bit humorous because of the lead up to it. But it's Vader murdering Admiral Ozzel from an entirely different ship just via a Skype call. And what's so interesting about it is it's one of my favorite Vader lines of all time leading up to this, where he says he's as clumsy as he is stupid. And then he's just had enough of this guy. And the minute he knew he was going to kill this guy before he even came on screen. So he comes on, Lord Vader, the ship has moved out. And then the other guys are standing there having to pretend like nothing's happening. Their buddy's getting murdered. And he's like, you're now in command, Admiral Piet. And he's like, oh, okay. Okay.
Like, what do you say in that moment, right? You're just like, all right.
Because we saw Vader do it to Mahdi in A New Hope from 3 feet away. And this time, he's on a completely different ship, just via a Zoom call, and he's still choking this guy out. So then you're like,
what's the range?
I don't have to be where this guy is, and he can kill me.
Yeah.
Like, the new level of fear. And also, it's just funny because the reaction of the other guys. And I'm sure it was intended to be funny because Star Wars is funny. So
well,
it's a
apology
of, like,
accepted and all that. Yeah, it's supposed to be funny.
That's Nita later. But yeah, Admiral Piet being put in charge while these other guys dropping to his knees and getting killed, just trying to listen to those orders. Like, he probably needed to change his pants after, if we're being honest. So it's just it's the new instillment of what the dark side of the Force is capable of, and then also like pretty funny in how it was reacted to, and also Vader. You knew Vader was done with that dude heading into that call.
Yeah, that after I just brought up Kylo Ren, like this is a moment that then you never see Kylo Ren do something like this. So Vader still kind of is like, you have much to learn.
Right.
Totally.
All right. So next up, we have pick 7. Lacey, it is your turn.
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with Empire Strikes Back because it's such a good movie. We can all agree that. But this moment's probably a little bit more subtle than choking out someone. But I think it's equally powerful because, again, it's someone reaching out to someone else from a different space, which it's the moment that Luke is speaking to Leia when she's on the Millennium Falcon and he's hanging from the Cloud City in Bespin, the big, I don't know what you call it, building in satellite antenna. He's wounded. He's at such a dark spot. He almost died. He's about to die if he lets go. He's probably on his last strength and he's using it to call to Leia. And for me with this moment, it was so powerful because not only could Luke call to someone for help, it gave me the first inkling that something was going on with Leia. That Leia was stronger than we first realized in the Force. Because he could have called to Lando, he could have called to Chewie, but he didn't. He called to Leia, and it was very specific to her. And you can see the kind of the voice wash over her and that feeling. And oftentimes throughout the original trilogy, she talks about, oh, I just had a feeling. It's just something I've known. And you see that reflected in other characters like Finn and other people. But this moment for me, I thought was, after we know that they're siblings, looking back on it, it's such a strong kind of family bond moment that really shows the connection between siblings. But more than that, it just shows that the Force is powerful also in the light. We were just talking about all these dark side people using the Force, but this is a way that people on the light can use it as well to just reach out to someone.
Yeah. It's a very incredible moment considering, like you said, he reaches out specifically to Leia, but point taken, he reaches out to Ben first and there's no answer, nothing.
Right.
And I think part of that is exactly what you're saying, which is it gives this insight into Leia, which is interesting because I feel like in our generation growing up with Star Wars, there's certain things that we just always knew. But like when you went to see that movie, you're like, well, you know what I mean? You're putting together this story where you're like, well, he wouldn't call to Lando because, he doesn't really know him or he doesn't know much about him, probably. And then Han, he's probably, I don't know, maybe he's feeling disconnected from Han. Like Han's not around. So who else is he going to reach out to? And he reaches out to Leia. But it is very surprising in the moment when you're sitting there and he says, Ben, you're like, yeah, okay, I see what's going on here. No answer. And then Leia. And then he's like, I feel like as an audience member, you go, why Leia? And here's another reason why you love this scene. I'm going to call it because they cut to Leia and they slow push in on her.
I do love a slow push, James.
Hearing
the Force theme. Yeah.
Hearing that voice and not understanding what's happening, but just knowing
Irvin Kershner loved
that I
the
have to go back.
push, especially on Leia throughout that movie. There are multiple moments that it's like Leia realization moments.
Also,
that's what makes it land is the slow push, I think, is you're like, you know what's going on and you are put in her position trying to piece together what's going
realization,
on. You understand that. Yeah.
And it was almost like Luke willed her to connect with the Force because he's like, hear me, Leia. And then she does it. And then she goes, we have to go back. And they're like, why? She's like, she doesn't say, I think I know where Luke is. She goes, I know where Luke is. She saw Luke in her mind. It's amazing. Yeah, good pick. All right, James, you're up. Number 8.
All right, this time I'm going with Rey moment. And this is in The Rise of Skywalker. And it's the climax of the movie when she needs to toss over that lightsaber and she uses the Force to give it to Ben Solo.
So good. Such a good moment.
I know that what we were doing here for this was kind of using a specific moment. And what I wanted to kind of go with was the Skype aspect of them, you know, with the lightsabers and stuff.
Force
But
bomb,
I was
yeah.
like, if you really had like, that's just like, I really think that's a cool ability. But if I had to narrow it down to like the moment in the franchise where it really makes the biggest impact, that is another like sort of plot twist moment. You know what I mean? You're like, I don't know how either one of these people are going to get out of the situation they're in. She takes it up, she puts it back, and then when she brings it back out and it's gone and he's got it, it's a cheer moment. You're like, I don't know what, I mean, I know what just happened because they've been showing it to us for 2 movies, but it's just so incredible when you see it happen. I think it just opens that door to another really cool thing that can happen within the Force.
Yeah. It's the Ben Solo moment. You know, he has his moment, and that was his moment. And we got to see what he could do using the light side of the Force, and it's just as powerful as what he did before. We were just talking about what he did as Kylo Ren. He took those guys down with ease and no problem, and he was smooth, and he used blasters. He deflected blaster bolts. It didn't matter what weapon came at him or how many came at him. He took them all down, and it was really cool what he did there, and I love that she was able to transfer that to him that way. It felt another fresh moment.
And the best moment is the shrug, the Han Solo shrug when he finally has it, and they're all looking at him like, "What?" And he's like, "It's so good."
Yeah.
And to match the past shot you just talked about, James, this shot is a pull out to reveal.
Yeah.
His
Oh, right, yeah.
Yes, and it became a popular fan meme. A lot of people recreated this, if you remember.
You did.
With the lightsaber.
I think I did
A bunch
too.
of
Yeah,
people
I
did.
think we all did.
All right. We are moving on to pick 9. I am going with Yoda lifting Luke's X-Wing out of the swamp on Dagobah.
Boring. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, great moment.
So boring. JJ's like, let's do it again.
Yeah.
But have Luke do it. But yeah, just, you know, the iconic element of it more of as a scene in Star Wars than necessarily brute use of the Force, but it's also Yoda teaching Luke a valuable lesson that it doesn't matter what you look like or how big you are or how much muscle you have. If you believe in the Force and connect with the Force, you can achieve anything. And Luke says, "I don't believe it," and Yoda says, "That's why you fail." And
It's
this
one
is
of my favorite
Yoda's
lines in Star Wars.
Yeah, and this is Yoda at the very end of his life too. It probably took a lot out of him to do that. Where maybe 400 years ago, he's like, "Get that ship out of there." So, and then the music, Yoda's theme, how beautiful that's playing over the ship moving from the swamp and landing safely onto the hard surface. And it's just one of those iconic Star Wars scenes where if you show somebody that, they're like, you know, I can get into this. This is pretty cool. When you put all the elements of that scene into it, including, of course, the cherry on the sundae is Frank Oz's puppetry and the voice and really bringing Yoda to life there. Just an amazing scene.
Yeah, it's hard to even talk about it because it's just so perfect. Like it's nothing I say about it is everyone's gonna be like, yes, of course. Because it's just one of those not just important scenes in Star Wars, but I feel like in cinema, like James, you were saying, like those lines are just so important to the story, to Star Wars, but also to just human nature of like believing in things even if they aren't in front of you, like believing that things will work out. Even if they feel hard or like the challenge that you're facing seems so unbearable or unsurmountable, that the moment you believe in yourself is going to change that. There's just so much that's awesome about this Force trick. I mean, you mentioned it, John, with the music and the puppetry and like the set itself is just so epic. But yeah, no, I think this trick, this Jedi trick and use of the Force in general is just such a turning point in the original trilogy, because you really see, before that, you've seen a lot of kind of mind stuff, like telling people what to do or having a feeling or having like what Rey calls luck in the sequel trilogy, like timing and stuff. This is something that literally is a gigantic ship and someone's moving it with their mind. Like that's insane.
Big turning point for Luke too.
Right. That
moment.
It unlocks what's possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. So speaking of what's possible, I am going to go with my last pick on my list, but
pick number 10.
I want to specify that just because I picked these 4 moments doesn't mean there aren't many more that could have been picked. I
That's
mean,
how they
James,
come in.
Yeah.
James picked two that were on my honorable mentions, and for this
Mhm.
character alone with Rey, there are just so many moments that I could have chosen where she beautifully uses the Force or has these, like from the stormtroopers in TFA, where she's convincing people and drop your weapon, leave the room with the door open.
Yeah.
But this moment to me, I think, is not just only the most important moment for Rey, but for me as a Star Wars fan, it was a moment that was a real turning point for me of what was possible within Star Wars and like what was to come. And that was Rey calling to the lightsaber in TFA. Because
Absolutely.
this moment is just like easily in my top 3, top 5 moments in all of Star Wars. Because as a woman growing up in Star Wars, you didn't have a Jedi that was a woman. And this was a moment that I just knew that like, oh my God, everything's different. Like now I have someone that's a Jedi that's a woman as well. Yeah.
I
And
think
it
John's
does,
showing us
goosebumps.
that he's getting goosebumps.
he's getting
When I
goose-
think about that scene, I get goosebumps.
it's just insane, and the idea of like the ramifications of her using the lightsaber, because throughout the movie she has these like inklings and moments and she doesn't want to accept what's her destiny and what's calling to her. And in kind of that moment of need to help her friends and to help other people and to stand up for what's right and the bad guy, stand up against the bad guy, kind of obviously like Luke Skywalker, she's able to hone in on her skills and on this ability to stand up for herself. And that
Mhm.
moment was another moment in the movie theater. Everybody gasped and cheered. Because for me personally, I thought it was going to be Luke. Like that's
so
who
did Mark Hamill.
Yeah,
Right.
I thought it was going to be Luke getting the lightsaber. I just
I
kind of
think
assumed
everybody
that.
did. It's
Yeah.
perfectly set up for that. And
Because you're waiting and waiting and waiting for him to show up, and I thought this was his moment. But I couldn't have imagined, and not to say that wouldn't have been awesome, because it would have, how wonderful this moment was for me and for now my daughter and other little girls growing up, that like this is their Jedi. And there's just so much
Absolutely.
weight and power and just like possibility with this, because it just showed that you didn't necessarily have to be someone like Luke Skywalker or like, I don't know, coming from the Jedi Academy. It could just be someone that's a no one and doing what's right. Now we eventually find out she's Palpatine, so that erases that. But at this moment, she was nobody.
Well, and the first cast script read, Mark Hamill was the narrator, and he thought, "This is where I come in. This is going to be
He
my
did.
big
He
moment."
openly said that, and I feel so bad for Mark, which we talked about on
Why?
Thursday. Mark's kind of growth and acceptance. So if you haven't watched that, go back and watch it Thursday. Listen to that Thursday episode. We talk about Mark.
But because everyone reacted the way they did, it showed how big of a scene it was, because it was still overwhelmingly, when everyone thought it was going to be Luke, everyone was still
And the
like, "Oh my
music.
God."
The music made
yeah.
this so great too. And
Yeah, Force
the
theme.
snow lightsaber fight that J.J. Abrams wanted was just so cool too. But
All right.
for me, it was just, this is probably one of the most important moments of my life in Star Wars.
It will always find its way in those montages. When they do those montages, it will always be there, because it's just one of those big timers. Now for the most predictable pick on the list, we're going to send it to James Baney. You didn't take it?
That was the other one I was kicking around and I didn't go with it.
Unbelievable. All right, here we go.
Wait,
All right.
say what you didn't take.
So the pick that I was kicking around earlier that I didn't go with is Kanan protecting everybody against the explosion. I have reasons why I didn't go with it. It didn't win over, but one of my reasons why I wanted to choose it was because his eyes come back. That's the moment for me. It's not even blocking something. It was that his
that's pretty
eyesight
cool.
returned.
Yeah.
But that's not my pick for the last one. The last one is going to solidify the missed opportunity from Mark Hamill, maybe in Force Awakens, we were just talking about, and bringing it back for one of my favorite Luke moments of all time. And that is when he shows himself as a Force projection on Crate.
There you go. Okay. That's yeah.
I thought you were going to say Blue Luke. I was like, I thought you hate Luke.
No.
You just said he shows himself, and I was like, is he?
Gotcha. Yeah. This, I mean, everything about like the Snoke thing that Lacey brought up earlier, but this particular thing being this huge revealing plot, whatever. I remember everybody gasping. I remember I wanted to stand up out of my seat. I was just completely floored by this. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was completely well executed. I walked out of the theater and I said to my friend, best Star Wars movie ever. I literally was just so completely floored by that move. It wasn't a storyline thing. It was just like the way the Force was presented. It just went over everybody's head. And I literally, I have so much trouble believing anybody that said like, oh, I saw that coming, or I noticed his feet wasn't blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, none of that.
Nobody
Him
knew in
walking
the first
through,
screening.
he's talking to Leia. He has the scene with C-3PO. He goes out there, the blasters, everything, all of it, the whole fight, everything. And then to reveal when he puts it inside of him. And I think your brain is like melting. You're like, I can't even understand what I'm looking at. And when it cuts to him sitting there meditating, it all comes together. I love the moment. It's so perfect. He's so much smarter. He elevates over Kylo in that moment. It's so good. I love it.
Yeah. There's not much else to say. It's an iconic moment and a full sort of return to form for the character. Amazing. Yeah. So my last pick and the last pick of the Kessel Run, also Luke Skywalker, but instead of his last moment, one of his first moments, and it's when he uses the Force by trusting Obi-Wan. Instead of using his target computer, he uses the Force to blow up the Death Star. He got help, obviously, from Han Solo to keep Vader and those thugs behind him, and he had the help from Obi-Wan, but he believed in the Force. And all those other guys that had the perfect target, that just impacted on the surface, didn't make it into the 2-meter wide space. Luke used the Force, fired away, and he blew up the Death Star. Just one of those big celebratory moments at the end of the first Star Wars movie.
That's the big moment in Star Wars. Like if nothing ever happened, that's the big moment.
Right.
You know,
if there were
like,
no more
huge.
movies, that's it. Yeah.
All right. So to recap our list before we hop out of here. Luke, mind trick on Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi. Yoda, Revenge of the Sith knocks out the guards. Obi-Wan's first Jedi mind trick against the Stormtroopers in A New Hope. Kylo killing Snoke in The Last Jedi. The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren freezing the blaster bolt from Poe Dameron. Vader killing Ozzel via a Skype call. Luke connects with Leia at the end of Empire Strikes Back. Rey transferring the lightsaber to Ben Solo in The Rise of Skywalker. Yoda lifting Luke's X-Wing out of the swamps of Dagobah. Rey catching the lightsaber on Starkiller Base at the end of TFA. Luke's trick on Crate to fool and defeat Kylo Ren. And, of course, we have Luke using the Force to destroy the Death Star. So that's our Kessel Run. Let us know what you think. What are your picks? And what did you think of our picks? We hope you enjoyed this Kessel Run of our top 12 uses of the Force in Star Wars. All right, we're going to hop out of here. Like everyone said before, make sure you're subbed to the podcast and spread the word because that's how we've been growing. So thank you so much for that. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies, where we're going to be doing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Hopefully it comes out tomorrow. Lacey, how about you?
People could find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gillerin.
James.
And me on Twitter and Instagram, both at Myra Trunks.
All right, we will see you all on Wednesday night this week due to my scheduling, but you'll see us sooner. So we hope you enjoy the start to your week, and we'll see you Wednesday with another episode right here on the Resistance Broadcast. We'll see you around, kids.